So there's a game coming out this Friday, September 18th, called Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Nintendo Switch. Now, I'm not sure if you have heard of this game, and honestly, I'm not even sure if we've talked about this game before on the channel, but it seems like a hot topic for gamers, so here we are talking about it. Now, obviously, I am kidding, as we've talked a lot about this game since it was announced, and really even before it was announced, when you guys thought that I was just lying to you about Super Mario 3D All-Stars being an actual thing. But let's be real, you guys seem to really dig all the updates and the information on Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and as Excalibur from AEW would say, you've got to give the people what they want. As we get closer to the release of the game, however, this Friday, we have learned a lot of weird and quirky things about the game. Some good, some disappointing, but now we have a bunch of new stuff to talk about because, well, the game already leaked online. Surprise, surprise! A first-party Nintendo game leaked online early. It's not like we've ever seen anything like that before, have we? Now, the focus of this video today is going to be mainly on two different things. One, we got a more in-depth look at how Super Mario Galaxy will control for the Nintendo Switch, including how Nintendo Switch Lite owners will be able to play the game, and a look at split Joy-Con mode as well. And the second thing is, well, a major discovery was made about these games. They're pretty much emulation. But honestly, I don't necessarily think that's an all bad thing, and we're going to talk about why in this video. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about the latest information about Super Mario 3D All-Stars, including the fact that, well, maybe emulation isn't necessarily that bad with this game. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, the controls for Super Mario Galaxy. Now, this game originally released on the Nintendo Wii, and while yes, it was a 3D platformer, it did have some of that good old Wii waggle that we all just learned to love on the system because, well, who really needs actual motion controls when you could just waggle your arm around like an idiot and do what you need to do in the game? Now, the original game of Super Mario Galaxy, of course, like I said, was mainly a 3D platformer, but in order to gather the shines that would appear on the screen, you would pretty much have to point your IR sensor and then wiggle it around to sort of raggle them up with the Wiimote control while you controlled Mario with the nunchuck. Now, obviously, the Nintendo Switch can do things like IR controls. We have seen that before, but it was going to be interesting because there's something called a Nintendo Switch Lite that, while it doesn't have detachable Joy-Cons or anything like that, so you would sort of have to come up with a new system for that, and it seems that Nintendo did indeed do that. Now, like I said, there are multiple ways to control Super Mario Galaxy. You can use standard controls in the game, as we see here on this picture, to do a spin with either X or Y. So that will basically help you to gather in these shines that appear on the screen without having to use things like the pointer. Now, you can do split Joy-Con mode, where one person controls Mario and the other person controls the IR sensor to pick up the shines. We have a picture of that as well from the menus of the game. Really, you know, it doesn't look all that nice. You know, it's kind of cramped to play a Nintendo Switch with a single Joy-Con, I feel, if you have hands that are bigger than, you know, a 5-year-old. So I don't think this will be a preferred method for a lot of people, but it is a method that you can use if you have small baby hands or you're just in a pinch and you want to play some Super Mario Galaxy with someone else. Now, if you're a Nintendo Switch Lite owner and you don't have an additional set of Joy-Cons, you can actually use the touchscreen, should you choose to do that, to gather in these shines. You can obviously use the touchscreen on the standard Nintendo Switch version of the game, or if you just want to forego the whole motion control, touchscreen control thing, you can simply press X or Y in order to spin to get Mario to gather these shines. So I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, you know, they had to do something with Super Mario Galaxy since the Nintendo Switch Lite doesn't have motion controls like it does with the standard Nintendo Switch as far as the Joy-Cons are concerned. And really, this sort of thing does give me hope for Skyward Sword, because yes, Skyward Sword was primarily based with the Wiimote in mind, but if Nintendo's able to do things like this with Super Mario Galaxy, why can't they do something with Skyward Sword if they decide to bring that over to the Nintendo Switch, which a lot of people think they will for the 35th celebration of the Legend of Zelda franchise. Skyward Sword is definitely a prime candidate to be coming over to the Nintendo Switch, so it's nice to have these options, and if you're able to do something like this with Super Mario Galaxy, you can obviously do something like this with Skyward Sword. But definitely the more interesting story when it comes to Super Mario 3D All-Stars, the thing that's sort of splitting the internet, some people are okay with with it and understand it. Some people are a bit upset by it because, well, it sort of goes along with the notion that we've sort of discovered with this game that, yes, it is a nice compilation of 3 excellent games. I guess I just called Super Mario Sunshine excellent, but let's be real, it is a little bit half-assed at the end of the day, is the fact that, yes, Super Mario 3D All-Stars did leak online. And when a game leaks online, of course, and when it's especially a Nintendo game, you get data miners digging into the source code of this game to learn about this game. And this was going to be something very interesting because were these games built from the ground up for the Nintendo Switch, or were they just simply emulation? And it does look like they are emulated versions of these games, but with a bit of an asterisk when it comes to the emulation. So Oatmeal Dome, who's on Twitter, who is a very popular Nintendo Switch data miner, has found some information about the Nintendo Switch version of these 3 games. The first thing is, of course, the fact that, yes, these games are running on emulation. Mario 64 is confirmed to be running on an N64 emulator, but it is not known which emulator it is. Now, as far as the ROM that's being used in that, it's the Shindu Pack ROM that is being used in this game. Now, texture code and text translation patches are actually applied on the fly with the game, and according to Oatmeal Dome, the first-person camera has inverted controls versus the original, and it also uses Vulkan API. Now, obviously, a lot of that is just technical stuff that, well, I don't really know about. If you want some more information on the tech side of things, make sure you guys go check out my buddy Modern Vintage Gamer. He actually just put up a video earlier today, and since, well, he ports and makes video games, he probably knows a little bit more than me. But the fact of the matter is, yes, Super Mario 64 is running via emulation on the Nintendo Switch. Now, that's actually kind of weird because it's not just something like where you get a Mario 64 ROM and then just put it in Project 64 and then play the game upscaled, because we've already learned that Nintendo did change up some of the textures in this game. So it's not a traditionally emulated experience in the sort of fact that if you play a game via an emulator, it's just taking that original game and then potentially upscaling it to a different resolution or anything like that, because Nintendo actually did make changes. And the fact that texture code and text translations are applied on the fly with this game shows that it's a bit deeper than just simple emulation. But at the end of the day, yes, it is just emulation. It was not built from the ground up for the Nintendo Switch. It wasn't reverse engineered like we saw with Super Mario 64 PC either. Now, when it comes to Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy, according to Oatmeal Dome, these games are running on a Wii and GameCube emulator named Haggy, and it's possibly being made by Nintendo of Europe's division, which is known as Nerd. Now, what's interesting about Super Mario Galaxy is the fact that, according to Oatmeal Dome, it appears that they recompiled the original code to run natively on the Nintendo Switch CPU, but everything else with the game, such as the GPU and the audio, is running via this emulation. Now, once again, that's sort of emulated with an asterisk because they obviously had to change some things, because you couldn't just simply port over Super Mario Galaxy to the Nintendo Switch. You couldn't simply just port over Super Mario Sunshine to the Nintendo Switch either, because those games use different sorts of control schemes. When you look at the GameCube controller and the fact that it has pressure sensitive triggers, when you look at the Super Mario Galaxy and the fact that it uses motion controls. I do think it's interesting that this is sort of like a bastardized hybrid emulation situation that Nintendo did with this. Obviously, they did change some of the source code on games like Super Mario Sunshine, which supports 16:9 widescreen. At the end of the day, though, the reason that a lot of people are upset by the fact that it is emulation is, like I said earlier, a lot of people just view this as just sort of a half-assed compilation on the Nintendo Switch of various 3D Mario games, and I don't necessarily think you're wrong in that assessment of the game. They could have done a lot more to celebrate Mario's 35th anniversary, especially looking at other retro game compilations that have come out on the Nintendo Switch. Some companies put a lot more effort into it. Nintendo just sort of did a basic thing with this version of the game, and I don't necessarily think that's bad. For me personally, I'm a little bit disappointed, but I'm still going to enjoy playing these games, and I think a lot of other people will. But like I said, on the other side of the coin, I can see why some people are upset. But the fact that Super Mario 3D All-Stars is using emulation is actually sort of a positive thing, because that means that now we have working emulators in-house from Nintendo for the Nintendo 64, GameCube, and Nintendo Wii running on the Nintendo Switch. Now, yes, obviously, if you hack your Nintendo Switch, you could do things like put different emulators and whatnot on there, but to have Nintendo actually have in-house emulators for N64, GameCube, and Wii support on the Nintendo Switch is actually a very important important thing because, well, that means we could get these games potentially in the future on the Nintendo Switch. And I think that's a very important thing that people need to take away from this, because it could open the doors to a lot more possibilities of classic N64, GameCube, and Nintendo Wii games appearing on the Nintendo Switch, maybe via the Nintendo Switch Online service or by individually releasing these games. We talked yesterday about how Super Mario Galaxy 2 was essentially teased for the 3D All-Stars collection, and I've heard a lot of different theories since then, but I actually heard one very interesting theory from one of my Patreon backers who hit me up and said, you know, maybe Nintendo will release Super Mario Galaxy 2 via an update or an individual release when they decide to release Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, and when it comes out in February. And I thought, you know what, that's actually an interesting thing to think about, because it's not outside the realm of possibility. Sure, Super Mario Galaxy 2 might not come to the Nintendo Switch at all, but I do find it interesting that this is something that is a possibility. And the fact that Nintendo now has in-house emulators for these systems, I think just raises the potential of these games coming to the Nintendo Switch. So if you're upset by the fact that it's emulation, I do understand, because yes, it does make the compilation look a little bit half-assed. But at the end of the day, if this leads to more N64, GameCube, and Wii games coming to the Nintendo Switch, I think the ends justify the means. So that's the latest stuff on Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Be sure to let me know what you think about this in the comments section down below. Like I said, I know this is a very polarizing topic. I know some of you guys will be fighting it out in the comments section down below. Just be respectful to each other. Understand that people have differentiating opinions on things, and at the end of the day, it's all good. We're just here to talk about video games. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.